Hello, guys. Back again with me in the movie review segment. By the way, how are you loyal viewers doing? Do you know the movie Sister Dead? That's the movie that follows Sister Sissa as she unravels a dark mystery in a remote convent. Well, it turns out that there is a sequel to the movie, and again, the story is inspired by true events. The sequel is called Veronica, 2017. This movie tells the story of a teenage girl named Veronica who tries to communicate with the spirit of her dead father. Unfortunately, it's not her father's spirit that appears, but a terrible evil creature. Curious what the full story is like? Okay, instead of lingering, let's get straight into the discussion. The movie opens with a scene of a sweet girl named Veronica getting ready for school. As usual, she goes through her morning routine. As the eldest child, Veronica is used to taking care of her younger siblings before going to school.
Primero para el baño. Levántate ya.
That morning, she asks her two younger siblings to help bathe her youngest, Anton, who has special needs. However, behind her smile and resilience, Veronica secretly envies the life of her neighbor, a boy named Candil, who looks so free without being burdened by family responsibilities like her.
Fíjate un poco, por favor.
Nos ha dicho la profe que nosotros no, tenemos que llevar negativos.
Los cordones de esa.
A poner ese apoyo mojado.
Fuera.
Vale.
Sadness came over her again as she gazed at a picture of her late father. Veronica was an orphan who had to carry a huge burden in her family. Her mother, who worked hard day and night, woke up and apologized for not being able to provide a better life for them. Despite the pain in her heart, Veronica tries to understand her mother's condition.
Adentro.
Y a su vez gira alrededor del Sol. Cuando la Luna se interpone entre el Sol, se proyecta sobre la superficie terrestre.
In the next few hours, a solar eclipse will occur. The nun at school explained that in ancient times, many people believed that an eclipse was a bad omen that could bring disaster. This belief even led them to perform human sacrifices as a ritual to ward off bad luck.
Realizar todo tipo de sacrificios. Cambiar de...
Shortly after giving this explanation, the nun ended the lesson because the solar eclipse was getting closer. As students flocked to the school roof to witness the rare event, Veronica and her best friend, Rosa, had other plans. With anxiety mixed with curiosity, they waited for someone to confirm the situation around them. Moments later, the person they were waiting for finally arrived and informed them that everyone had gathered on the roof of their respective houses. This was their chance to perform a seance using a Ouija board.
Aquí.
Con papeles recortados y tal, ¿sabes? Yo te puedes preguntar cualquier cosa.
Veronica, who misses her father terribly, wants to try to communicate with him. Meanwhile, Rosa intends to summon the spirit of her pet Rossi, a chicken who died of an overdose. They believe that performing this ritual at the same time as the solar eclipse would increase the chances of success.
Cerrar los ojos.
While other children were busy observing the eclipse phenomenon, Veronica and her friends began to focus on the Ouija board. As they placed their hands on the glass, something unexpected happened. The glass began to move on its own, taking them by surprise.
V.
With their hearts racing, they immediately asked, "Whose spirit is communicating with us?" However, the answer that appeared on the Ouija board was unexpected. Their seance was successful. Feeling more interested, they decided to continue. However, the atmosphere suddenly turned tense. Rosa and Diana began to feel hot, while Veronica remained calm and focused. However, the weirdness started to happen when Veronica started acting strangely. Slowly, something invisible seemed to overcome her until she was possessed. When Veronica finally woke up, she was surprised to find herself in the UKS room. Her face was full of confusion. Sister Sonia, who accompanied her, immediately explained that Veronica was found unconscious in the basement. Surprisingly, Veronica had no recollection of what had just happened, including the séance they had performed. Sister Sonia didn't ask many questions and only advised Veronica to go home and rest.
Punto de terminar. Comieras algo de carne roja.
After leaving the school, she picked up her two younger siblings, Irene and Lucia, to go with her to pick up Anton. However, as she was about to leave, Irene suddenly whispered that the Death Sister was staring at Veronica from a distance.
No, sordas de... No puede ver nada, ¿verdad?
As is known, the nurse in question is Sister Sissa, a figure nicknamed the Sister of Death by all students at school. For those who don't know the previous story and are interested, write in the comments, we will upload the movie. Arriving home, Veronica immediately asked her siblings to clean up. Upon entering her room, she was surprised to see her Ouija board broken. "Why is this?" she muttered in confusion. Despite feeling that something was wrong, Veronica chose not to dwell on it for too long. Quickly, she tucked the broken Ouija board under her cot. The day passed, and since their mother was still not home, they could only eat a simple lunch.
Y la bola negra se pone... Ve tú. Piedra, papel o tijera. Toma. No. 3, ya. Pero no te digo nada.
They were immediately shocked to see Veronica shaking violently, as if she was haunted by guilt.
Verónica. Menos mal que ponía Brezasi.
However, something even stranger happened to Anton. He doesn't react when the hot water from the tap gushes into the bathtub, almost scalding his body. As night fell, Veronica's guilt grew. She felt responsible for what happened to Anton. However, Anton, who didn't want his sister to drown in sorrow, tried to calm her down. In a soft voice, he said that the wounds on his body didn't hurt at all. In fact, he promised not to tell their mother about the incident. Shortly after, Veronica, who was pensive, suddenly remembered something. In her mind full of questions, she suddenly noticed the presence of a strange figure. From the corner of the room, a thin figure with a pale face seemed to be observing her from a distance. Who exactly was that figure? Was it just his shadow, or was something really watching him? In the middle of the silent night, Veronica, who was sleeping, was suddenly jolted awake. There was a strange sound coming from inside the closet. Alarmed, she immediately checked the source of the sound. When she opened her eyes wider, she was shocked by an equally creepy sight. Her two younger siblings looked terrified, hiding as if they were avoiding something that threatened them. However, the biggest shock came when Veronica looked the other way. The figure she saw in front of her made her blood run cold. It was her father with a deathly pale face and a creepily blank expression. Fortunately, it was all a bad dream. Veronica woke up with a gasp, still feeling the effects of the horrific dream. However, before she could compose herself, Anton reminded her that they were almost late for school. The day went on as usual. In the middle of class, Veronica suddenly felt the urge to go to the basement. She remembered something she had done earlier. While looking for something there, she was suddenly startled by a stern reprimand from Sister Sissa. With a serious expression, she stares at her sharply while smoking her cigarette, reminding Veronica of a figure who once looked like Valak. Sister Sissa, who is known for her psychic abilities, asked Veronica to show her the photo she had kept. After looking at her deeply, the nun's face turns tense. She warned that Veronica's seance was reckless and could lead to disaster. In the midst of the growing panic, Veronica decided to invite her younger siblings to sleep together in the living room. She felt it was the best way to keep them safe. However, their tranquility didn't last long. Suddenly, Lucia was startled when she felt Veronica's hand on her neck. "It wasn't me. It's an evil spirit. I swear to protect you all." In a stern tone, Veronica asked her siblings to go to sleep and not think about strange things. However, the night wasn't over yet. Veronica woke up again when an unfamiliar voice called her name from the corner of the room. Her mother was finally home. Sensing that something was wrong, she immediately asked, "What's going on here?" Anton, a young but innocent boy, immediately replied, "There's an evil spirit that wants to harm us, Mom." Hearing that answer, the mother just let out a long sigh. She didn't believe in mystical things and thought her children were only scared because of their own imagination. "Already, don't think weird. You have to sleep," she said, calming them down. A few moments later, the mother had a one-on-one talk with Veronica. In a serious tone, she warned Veronica not to instill negative suggestions in her younger siblings. However, Veronica, who was still overwhelmed with fear, tried to explain that everything she saw was real. Her mother's eyes immediately widened. Her originally calm face was now full of shock and anger. The next day, the house was still tense. Veronica, still feeling uneasy, found her younger siblings busy playing and making a mess of the house. However, before he could scold them further, something unexpected happened. As it turned out, everything Veronica experienced was just a nightmare. She woke up with her breath catching, her body still feeling tired. However, when she got out of bed, she was surprised by something unexpected. There were menstrual blood stains on her mattress. Quickly, she grabbed a cloth and started cleaning it. However, while scrubbing the mattress, her nose caught a pungent foul smell from underneath her bed. Creeped out, she dared to peek down. When she took a closer look, her eyebrows furrowed. The pungent odor came from a black stain on her mattress. A bad feeling immediately ran through her body. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Veronica hurriedly checked her younger siblings' beds. However, what she found was far more horrifying. The black stains under their mattresses actually formed silhouettes resembling human figures. Fear began to creep into her body. Without thinking, she immediately asked her younger siblings to go with her. Arriving at a cafe, Veronica left them with her mother, who was busy at work. After making sure her siblings were safe,
Entonces, ¿por qué has vuelto?
She left with one goal in mind, to see Sister Sissa. After hearing Veronica's story, Sister Sissa gave a rather chilling answer. "If you want to send her away, you have to do it the same way you called her," she said seriously. Their conversation wasn't finished when suddenly Sister Sonia came to pick up Sister Sisa. However, before leaving, Sister Sisa had whispered, "The answer to stop all this is in the medium you use." Hearing that, Veronica began to remember every detail of the ritual they had performed earlier. It hit her they had made a fatal mistake. Supposedly, after the seance ritual, they had to say goodbye. Otherwise, the summoned spirit would remain attached to the summoner. Feeling increasingly agitated, Veronica rushed to find Rosa. She knew there was only one way to fix everything. When she finally met Rosa, Veronica immediately invited her to perform the ritual once again, this time according to the correct rules. However, Rosa flatly refused. Feeling that her efforts were in vain, Veronica returned to the cafe in despair. With a trembling voice, she begged her mother to let them leave town immediately. However, her mother only let out a long sigh. "Veronica, we can't even survive here. It's hard just to pay for food," he said in a tired tone, refusing Veronica's request. In the midst of growing despair, Veronica suddenly had an idea. She decided to bring her siblings home as soon as possible. Upon arriving home, without hesitation, she immediately picked up the Ouija board. This time, she was determined to complete the rudimentary ritual, even if it meant involving her younger siblings. Night fell. Veronica, who had no other choice, decided that they had to perform the closing ritual immediately if they wanted to be completely free of evil spirits. But before starting, she divided the tasks among her younger siblings. Anton is asked to draw protection symbols on the wall, while Lucia and Irene are tasked with finding candles. Unfortunately, innocent Anton made a fatal mistake. Instead of drawing an antidote symbol, he unknowingly drew a demon summoning symbol. Despite the stress of the mistake, Veronica continued with the ritual. She began to perform the gate-closing stage with great concentration, trying to correct the mistake they had made earlier.
¿Aquí con nosotras? ¿Hay alguien aquí con nosotras?
To reinforce the process of disconnecting from the already summoned spirit, they sing a song together in a relaxed tone, an ancient technique believed to calm the spirit's energy and weaken the bond.
No paréis, no podemos parar. Tiempo para disfrutar. Tiempo para disfrutar. Tiempo para disfrutar. Ya no pare. Tiempo para disfrutar. Seguid cantando.
However, something strange happened. As they began to sing, suddenly a glass on top of the Ouija board moved by itself, slowly rolling towards the corner of the room. Amidst the increasingly tense atmosphere, Veronica hurriedly grabbed her cell phone to call the police. However, before she could press the call button, something happened. Anton was suddenly frozen in place, as if he heard a voice calling his name from the darkness. Veronica was relieved when she finally saw Anton again. Without wasting any time, she immediately invites her younger siblings to leave the house immediately. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the mother who was at work was surprised by the presence of a police team moving towards her house. A bad feeling immediately came over her heart. Without thinking, she decided to go home as quickly as possible. The truth was revealed. Veronica hadn't really found Anton all this time. She was only trapped in an illusion created by the evil entity that possessed her. With panic mounting, Veronica rushes to find Anton, hoping to find him safe and sound. At the same time, her mother, who had just arrived home, was immediately greeted by the sound of crying and screaming from her younger siblings. The tension mounts when they finally find Anton. It turns out he's been hiding in the closet all this time. Trembling, Anton tries to rouse Veronica. However, what he says only makes Veronica even more shocked. At that moment, Veronica realizes the horror that has been happening. All the chaos that has befallen them was done by herself. She has been possessed by an evil spirit without realizing it. Feeling that there is no other way to stop this terror, Veronica makes an extreme decision to protect her family. How surprised Romero was to see Veronica convulse in a very strange way. In the chaos, they immediately rushed to evacuate Anton and the unconscious Veronica. However, alas, the beautiful Veronica was pronounced dead. Romero, who handled the case, later wrote down his notes. On June 15, 1991, Romero received a distress call from Veronica recounting the events we have just witnessed. It all started with Veronica playing with a Ouija board, which unwittingly summoned evil spirits that eventually plagued her family. As time went on, the terror and strangeness increased in the apartment where they lived. This case became very famous because it was based on a true story that happened in Madrid, Spain. Romero closed his report with the title, Phenomena Beyond Reason, because this was the first case in Spain that involved the police in handling supernatural cases. This movie is really horrifying, isn't it? There's nothing further to explain other than the fact that Veronica, who initially wanted to communicate with her late father, is calling on a spirit that turns out to be an evil spirit. At the end of the story, although her 3 younger siblings survived, a tragic fate befell Veronica. That's all the reviews and discussions about the movie Veronica, 2017. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss other interesting videos.